These are 15 AFL players that I recommend you should look out for during this 2025 AFL season. I'll be talking about some of the most highly anticipated players throughout this entire off-season, as well as a few players who I think have potential for a breakout season this year. Now, if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, could you please show me that by liking the video, as well as subscribing to the channel if you guys are new. And after wasting your time, let's get straight into it. Starting off strong, we've got the one and only Bailey Smith. Obviously, he has not played a single AFL game since the end of 2023 due to him injuring his ACL during a pre-season training session, which obviously led to him missing the entire 2024 season for the Western Bulldogs. But very early last year, there was some speculation going on that Bailey Smith is interested in moving clubs to either Hawthorn, Collingwood or Geelong. But as the trade period got closer and closer, his interest in the Geelong Cats just grew, and now he is currently playing for them. And from what it looks, he's been training pretty hard over at GMHBA this pre-season, and as Geelong are heavy premiership contenders for this year, it seems like he should be a great addition to their side. But I suppose we'll have to see how he holds up after not playing a single AFL game for over a year now. Moving on to number 2, my man, Nick Dacos. As a Collingwood supporter, there's really no shock that I've been paying close attention to Nick, and obviously how he's been training this off-season. As of recently, there has been word that Nick Dacos has injured himself at training, but he has publicly said that he will 100% be there opening rounds to play against the Giants. And as of late, he has been taking part in the main training sessions once again, so it looks like he's getting back into form, and he is going to be a very, very scary player to go up against. Obviously, he finished second in last year's Brownlow count with 37 votes, and the year before he finished third. It's crazy to think that he's only 22 years of age and he's racking up 30 disposals every single week and dominating against players that are way more experienced than he is, and still makes it look easy. The third player we're talking about today is Jagger Smith. Now, he is obviously a very young player and has not yet played a game, as he was only picked up in the very recent draft period, but you think he'd definitely be on track to debut by Carlton's first game of the season. And from the highlights that the AFL has showcased on social media, it looks like he could be a very good addition to the Carlton side, and despite him not being the number 1 draft pick for Richmond, I still think he's a very good chance of becoming the rising star by the end of the year. But I suppose it is way too early to tell, and we're going to have to wait and see what happens. On to number 4, another Carlton player being Charlie Curnow. I've honestly been sort of shocked that no one's actually been talking too much about Charlie Curnow during this off-season, and no one's really mentioned his name since his injury back in August last year. He won the 2022 and 2023 Coleman medal, and honestly probably did deserve it over Jesse Hogan, but he obviously missed the final few games of the season, meaning that he was not able to kick those goals that he probably should have. But you think as long as he does have an injury-free year this year and still plays as well as he did in his 2022 and 2023 days, he'd definitely be on track for either another Coleman or at least just a decent impact for his side. But realistically, Curnow and Mackay forward should be all the Blues really need for their forward line this year. Next up, probably one of the most followed players this off-season by pretty much any AFL fan, Christian Petrarca. He's easily been the best player to keep track of during this pre-season. Obviously, most people watching are already aware of his injury back during the King's birthday clash against Collingwood, and he received one of the most career-changing injuries that an AFL player could ever receive. He left with 4 fractured ribs, a punctured lung, and a lacerated spleen. But Petrarca has been very, very determined to get back in shape ever since then. In fact, he even missed the Melbourne Demons best and fairest in order for him to make it to the Red Bulls training camp in Austria. And from all the clips and highlights that we've seen on not only the Melbourne Demons social media, but also the AFL social media, Petrarca has a genuine chance of returning in the best form that he's ever been in. Well, it was just until a few weeks ago where Christian Petrarca came out and said that he cracked another one of his ribs after a bump at training. And as that was only a few weeks ago, Melbourne fans are a bit worried about his chances of returning round 1. Number 6 is Harry Sheezel. Sheezel is obviously still a very fresh face to the AFL world after receiving his Rising Star Award only at the end of 2023. But as of recent, Harry Sheezel has been announced as the co-vice captain of the North Melbourne Football Club alongside his teammate Nick Larkey. He certainly lived up to the hype last year after having a game average of 29 disposals. And his best game of last season was not only his best game of the season, but also his career best game, being 38 disposals in round 5 against the Geelong Cats. And although there isn't too much evidence to back this up, some would make the argument that Harry Sheezel could be on for a very, very big 2025. We're getting through these names very quickly, and at number 7 we have Shea Bolton. We won't have to wait too much longer to see how Bolton plays, as within the next few weeks he will be taking part in the Indigenous All-Stars football match. He was picked up by the Richmond Tigers back in 2016 and has not left them ever since. That was until playing for a WA side struck his interest. Bolton could take part as a small forward and midfielder role as shown back at the Richmond Tigers, and although despite what stats say, I just don't believe Bolton has reached his max potential at the Tigers, and I think he would be definitely given a lot more opportunities at Fremantle. And I'm sure Freo are hoping that Bolton can help to pursue everything that they have been dreaming of ever since they joined the AFL. And of course, I'm referring to that final game in September. Next on the list, I've got Isaac Heaney. You'd make the argument that Heaney was top 3 out of the best players that we saw last year. Now, obviously, I am aware that he did not finish 3rd in the Brownlow Medal count. He only finished 5th, and that was even with his suspension that he received earlier in the season. But there's certainly been a lot of controversy regarding last year's Brownlow, so I'm not going to get too into it. The Swans have easily got one of the best midfields in the competition, with them having players like Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner, and Errol Goulden, who the final 2 aren't actually on this list that I'm talking about today, but they should have good seasons this year as well. He was given an opportunity to play in the AFL Grand Final of 2024 against Brisbane. Obviously, they did get absolutely thrashed in that Grand Final. It was a shocking performance by the Swans, and Heaney probably didn't do as much as he probably hoped he would. But you know what, before that, he had an absolutely amazing finals run, and I'll say it, he probably did deserve Mark of the Year. Next up at number 9, I've got Jai Newcombe. He is definitely an up-and-coming star and soon should be in contention to be the best player on the Hawks list. We saw him take home the 2024 Best and Fairest for the Hawthorn Football Club, and I believe he should go on to do even better things this year. The Hawks also seem to be a bit on the rise this year after their so-called Hawk Bowl that they took part in last year. He's currently going into his 4th AFL season of his career, and he's kind of in the same boat as Nick Dacos in the sense that he's still very, very young, yet he's still dominating every single week on the field. And I don't believe he's reached his max potential yet, so once he reaches his prime, he's just going to be unstoppable. Next up, we've got last year's normie, Will Ashcroft. In 2022, he was picked up at pick 2 for the Brisbane Lions. He also took part in this year's AFL Grand Final against the Swans and took home the Norm Smith medal as well as the Premiership medal. He had an average of 22 disposals a game, and that's pretty good considering he only played 13 games in 2024. He also racked up a total of 30 in the Grand Final as well as kicking 1 goal on top of that. After his most recent performance in his most recent game, there's definitely a lot of hype building up around him, some saying that he could go on to be one of the best players in the league. Lachie Neale is also 31 years of age now, meaning that I feel like he probably is going to retire around the 35, 36 mark, meaning that Will Ashcroft could definitely be a player that could step up once Lachie Neale does announce his retirement, and he looks like he could take part in a future leadership role for his club. While we're on the topic of Will Ashcroft, let's talk about his brother Levi. He was picked up at pick 5 during the 2024 draft period, and he was also drafted to the Brisbane Lions. Everyone's been hyping up at the fact that he could potentially be a better player than his brother Will, but he's only 18 years old currently, and we haven't even seen him play a single AFL game yet, so how about we just hold off on that sort of stuff? I believe it will take him a few rounds, maybe up until round 5, just to adapt to the way the AFL works, but obviously alongside his brother Will Ashcroft and obviously big names like 2-time Brownlow medalist Lachie Neale, Hugh McCluggage, and even Zach Bailey as well. But all the things that have been talked about regarding Levi Ashcroft looks like he should be on for a very big first year, but he's certainly got a big name to live up to as he has been given his father's number being number 10. And let's just say his dad is certainly no stranger to the AFL world as he was the first Queenslander to reach over 300 games. Next up, I'll be talking about Sam Laylor. This shouldn't come across as a shock to anyone as he was picked up at number 1 during the most recent draft period, and the number 1 pick is always hyped up every single year. He has a bit of a cricket background as well, but after noticing that he has a lot more skill regarding Aussie rules, he chose this sport over the other. When being drafted, the media started comparing him to players like Christian Petrarca, Jordan De Goey, and the biggest name of the 3, Dustin Martin. And very rare that number 1 draft picks do play worse than expected. Just have a look at previous years like Harley Reid, Aaron Cadman, Jason Horne-Francis, and Jamara Ugle-Hagan. Despite some people saying that he's not the best first round draft pick that we've seen this year, he's still the number 1, so we got to put him in. Moving on to the next name, we've got Max Holmes. After a breakout 2024 season, he's left all Geelong fans absolutely starstruck, and now all the hype is building up to see how he goes in this year's season. He took home the 2024 Geelong Cats Best and Fairest, and he was only picked up 4 years ago. In fact, in his draft profile, it said that his strengths were his speed and endurance, which has definitely been demonstrated over the past few years. And the 2 things that the AFL recommend he should work on is rawness and body strength, and I think it's safe to say he's been able to achieve that. He picked up a total of 10 Brownlow votes in the 2024 count, and Cameron Mooney has even gone as far to predict him inside the top 10 of this year's Brownlow. And as I said earlier, the Cats are very heavy premiership contenders going into this year's AFL season, and just like last year, I think Max Holmes will be a very important part of the Geelong Cats finals campaign. We've only got 2 more names that I'll be talking about, and next up, I've got Patrick Cripps. He's obviously coming off a career best 2024 season, with him becoming a 2-time Brownlow medalist, and not even that, but he's also been able to break the record of the most Brownlow votes ever, being 45, which certainly caused a lot of controversy on social media. And it's no shock that the Brownlow medalist also received the Carlton Blues Best and Fairest, and he also secured an All-Australian spot. Let's face it, key players like Cripps, Curnow, Mackay, and maybe even Wiedering are the glue that is holding this side together. Cripps is also likely to keep this form over the next few years, and I think he's certainly a player that could be playing until he's 36, maybe even 37 at this point. And the last name, I've got Jake Stringer. This is certainly one of the least expected trades in the trade period, and I believe he's likely to play either 2 ways. Either he has a breakout 2025 season and kicks 40 to 50 plus, or plays awful and kicks only 25 or less, which is not great for a tall forward like himself. I don't see there being any in between. But Jake Stringer alongside previous Coleman winner Jesse Hogan, I think they'll absolutely tear up the AFL this year. I also think he will be given a lot more opportunities at the Giants. Not that he didn't really get much Essendon, as he did kick over 40 last year. I think he kicked 42 in total, but he'll certainly be a lot more worshipped at the Giants. And we do need to realise that he is a very experienced player, as this year will be his 12th career season. Now, there's a few other players that I would have liked to mention in today's video, like Isaac Franklin, Tristan Sherry, Tom Green, Kyle Oman. The list just goes on and on and on, but unfortunately we can't talk about everyone. But these are the 15 players that I believe will have breakout seasons this year and that you guys should pay close attention to throughout this AFL season. Hope you all did enjoy this video, and if you did, I hope to see you all in the next video that I post here on the channel. See ya.